Hey everybody, this is Rykard here again, and welcome to another Pokemon X and Y analysis video. Today's video is going to be on the final evolution of the grass starter known as Greninja, so let's take a look. So first off, Greninja is a Water Dark type Pokemon, similar to that of Sharpedo and Crawdaunt, and the first ability that it gets is known as Torrent, which is an ability that increases the power of Water type moves when you are at a third of your health or less, and it's the standard Water starter ability. However, its hidden ability, which is known as Protean, is possibly one of the coolest and most interesting abilities in the game, and also probably the one you're going to almost always be using on Greninja just because of how awesome it is. Basically, the way this ability works is that whenever you go for a move, you turn into the type that the move is. So for example, if you go for Surf, Greninja turns into a mono water type. It loses the dark type completely and just turns into a water type. If you go for Shadow Sneak, Greninja turns into a ghost type. And this change happens before you go for the move, which means you effectively get stab on every single attack in the game, which is possibly one of the most amazing things ever, and will definitely allow this Pokemon to do some serious damage with any of its moves. As far as its stats are concerned though, its defenses are not that great, being only base 72 HP, 67 defense, and 71 special defense, so overall Greninja is a little bit on the frail side. However, its offensive power is quite phenomenal. It has base 95 physical attack, which means that it will definitely be able to do a lot of damage with its physical moves, as well as base 103 special attack, which means that it will even be able to do a lot of damage with special attacking moves as well. But I guess the biggest stat of Greninja is its really quick speed, which is base 122, and that is a number that has been unheard of so far. I mean, there are things faster, but there's nothing else in the game with base 122 speed, but Greninja is just blazingly fast and able to really dish out damage very quickly because more often than not, it will be outspeeding your opponent if you are running, Jolly Nature or Timid Nature or whatever, and they are not Scarfed. But with that, let's just jump into the first moveset that I have for you in this video. So to kick things off, I have a special attacking set for you all today for Greninja. So we're going to start by giving it a Naive Nature to increase its speed but lower its special defense, and for the ability, we're going to be going with Protean. As for the EVs, we're going to put 4 into our defense, 252 EVs into our special attack, and then the remainder 252 EVs into our speed to give us our max special attack and max speed possible with the Naive Nature. And as far as the item is concerned, we're going to be going with pretty much any of the attacking items that we can use. So a Life Orb, a Choice Scarp, Choice Specs, or an Expert Belt are all completely good and viable options for you to run on this set with Greninja, so take your pick, and pretty much all of them will work out really well. As far as the moves are concerned though, we're going to start by giving Greninja Hydro Pump to be its main powerful water type attack on this set. Obviously Hydro Pump was nerfed a little bit, it's now 110 base power as opposed to 120, but it's still a very strong and solid move and capable of doing a lot of damage to any opponents. But to give you some more type coverage on this set, we're going to go with Ice Beam as a way to cover some of your grass type weaknesses, but then again, you are turning into an ice type before you go this move anyway, so that's not really that big of a deal. But also important to keep in mind that because you are turning into an ice type, you will now be more susceptible to being revenge killed if you take something out with Ice Beam, because you are now weak to Bolt Punch and Mach Punch. So it is something to keep in mind when you do use that move, because it does make you a pretty bad defensive typing, but it's still powerful and nice when you can get stab on it like you do with the Protean ability. As for your third attacking move though, you could go for either Hidden Power Fire or Dark Pulse. It's pretty much whichever you want the coverage for. Hidden Power Fire is absolutely fantastic for Steel types, and there are a ton of Steel types that you're going to be seeing running around. I'm assuming that Greninja is going to be OU, so Steel types will be everywhere. So Hidden Power Fire is definitely fantastic. You get stab on it as well because of Protean, and it's a really great way to counter Ferrothorn and things like that, so it's a really awesome move. But if you do want to go for another option, Dark Pulse is definitely a very solid way to go as well, giving you some coverage against Psychic types and Ghost types, because there are numerous Ghost types running around right now as well. So honestly, both of those moves work really well, and it's all dependent on the type coverage you want and what other kind of support you have with your team. But for the last move slot, we're going to go for U-Turn as a way to be a solid scout as well. It's really nice when you turn into a bug type before you go for U-Turn, and because you're going to do more damage with it that way, which is really nice. But it's a way to scout and also effectively used a choiced set, because you could U-Turn out instead of locking yourself into a move, which is always a smart option. Up next, I have a physical attacking set for Greninja, and the options listed here are pretty diverse, so I'm going to try and explain all of this as best I can, but there's a lot of really cool things you can do with the physical attacking set for Greninja. So first, we're going to start off by giving it a Jelly Nature, possibly to increase its speed and lower its special attack, or an Adamant Nature to increase its physical attack and lower its special attack. It's whichever one you want to go with here. And for the ability, we're going to be going with Protean yet again. As for the EVs, since this is a physical attacking set, we're going to start by putting 252 EVs into our physical attack, 4 into our defense, and then 252 EVs into our speed to give us our max attack and max speed possible. And as far as the item is concerned, we are going to be going with the same options as before, so Life Orb, Choice Scarf, Choice Band this time instead of Choice Specs, Expert Belt, and then also possibly a Flying Gem if that is eventually in the game. Currently it isn't, which is why it's in red, so there is no way to get a Flying Gem, at least as far as I'm aware right now. But this is a possible option to go with one of the moves on the set, which I will explain as I get further down in this slide. But as far as the moves are concerned, we're just going to pay attention to the left side of the moves really quickly. Basically, Greninja gets a ton of priority moves. It has a signature move in Water Shuriken. It also gets Quick Attack and Shadow Sneak. So if you wanted to, you could effectively run a Choice Banded Adamant Greninja with only priority and U-turn and just be an amazing revenge killer. So that is one really good option, obviously, as I said before, many times before, that you get stabbed on all these moves. So that is one option you could possibly do with the set. But if you want to go for some more powerful moves in the first slide, you could go with Waterfall, which is going to be obviously your strongest physical water type move. And then also in your second slide, you can go with either Night Slash or Return. Night Slash gives you some really good type coverage, whereas Return is just a really solid move to have, just because you get stab on it. It'll be 153 base power. And it's just going to be a strong move where you can basically go for it when you don't really know what your opponent might switch into. It's not super effective against anything, but it's still really powerful, so it's definitely a good option. And then for your third move slot, you can go with either Rock Slide for some more type coverage, or Acrobatics for some different type coverage, along with the Flying Gem, which could be a possible option. However, any combination of any of these moves, in all honesty, would work because of Protean. So if you want to run like Night Slash, Return, and Rock Slide as your Greninja, you can totally do that, and that's not weird at all. It's really more or less what you think the best type coverage for this Pokemon will end up being. And honestly, it's also, dependent upon your team, because if you need some type of coverage and something else, you might consider running one move over the other, because all of them are equally good on this Greninja. But again, lastly, we're rounding everything off with U-turn as a way to maneuver around the battlefield a lot easier, act as a scout, and also make good use of the choice item that you might use on the set if you choose to do so. Up next, I have a boosting physical attacking set for Greninja. So we're going to start by going with Jolly Nature or an Adamant Nature, depending on your preferences. Jolly obviously increasing your speed while lowering your special attack, whereas Adamant will increase your physical attack while lowering your special attack. And as for the ability, this is probably one of the only sets you could use with Greninja where you would actually consider running Torrent over Protean. But I'll get to that as I talk about the moves a little bit. But just keep that in mind that you can run Torrent on the set equally well as running Protean, so it's really whichever one you want to go with. But as far as the EVs are concerned, you can go 252 attack EVs, 4 defense EVs, and 252 speed EVs to give us your max attack and max speed. And as far as the item is concerned, you're going to be going with a Select Berry on the set as a way to boost your speed once you've hit below 25% of your health. Now, to help you along with getting down to a lower range of health, the first move on this set is going to be Substitute. Not only that, it also puts you behind a protective barrier to allow you to set up easier behind. Substitute also could be used if you do use the Torrent ability to get you into Torrent range, thus making your water type attacks more powerful, so there is that option as well. But as far as the boosting move on this set is concerned, Power Up Punch, the new 40 base power fighting type move introduced into Gen 6, will be our boosting move of choice here because it will boost your physical attack by 1 stage every time you go for it, which is absolutely fantastic. It's kind of like a physical attacking version of Flame Charge, which is really cool. But once we have sufficiently boosted our attack, hopefully behind a sub, maybe activated the Select Berry as well, and if you're running Torrent or in Torrent range, you can start using your more powerful moves on this set, which we're going to start off with is Waterfall. Waterfall obviously being your strongest water type move that you can learn. Also has a chance to flinch, which is very nice, but it should be very powerful after a couple Power Up Punch boosts. And then for your last move slot, you have the option of going with either Night Slash or Shadow Sneak for the type coverage. Night Slash obviously really good, gives you some really good type coverage with Waterfall. Very easy to run with the Torrent ability because you don't change your type at all, so you stay water dark. You could also easily run this with Protean as well because it just gets stab on it anyway. But if you are running Protean, you could also possibly run Shadow Sneak in this last move slot as well. Now this has a couple options, the first being that you could be an amazing revenge killer. Now granted, after a Select Berry boost, you're probably going to be faster than pretty much everything anyway, but if there are other priority users like Scissor or something like that you're running into, you could Shadow Sneak before it can Bullet Punch, which is something to keep in mind. Also, if you are using Protean, as I said, you'll turn into a Ghost type, which is amazing because you are now immune to both normal and fighting moves, which could lead you another opportunity to set up another power-up punch because you're now a type that has some immunities. So it's really whichever one you want to go with here. Really good options either way, so it depends on your preferences and your last move slot, and pretty much whatever coverage you think you're going to need for the set. Up next, we have an offensive entry hazard set for Greninja, so we're going to start by either going with a Naive Nature to increase your speed while lowering your special defense, or a Timid Nature to increase your speed while lowering your physical attack. It kind of depends on the last move slot, which I will get to momentarily. But as far as the ability is concerned, we're going to be going with Protean, and for the EVs, we're going to be putting 4 into our defense, 252 into our special attack, and 252 into our speed to give us our max special attack and max speed possible with whichever nature you decide to choose. There is an option to run a physical version of this, but I honestly don't think it's that powerful or as powerful or has the best type coverage compared to the special version, but you can do that. Keep in mind, I'm just not going to list that here. But as far as the items are concerned here, we're going to go with either Leftovers for some recovery, Life Orb to deal some more damage, Expert Belt to deal some more damage on super effective hits, or a Focus Sash to allow us to easily set up entry hazards if we are the first thing in battle or there are no other hazards on our opponent's team, so we can be guaranteed to come in safely and set up at least 2 layers possibly. But as far as the entry hazard things are going to be, Spikes and Toxic Spikes are both options for Greninja. It learns both of these moves, which is really cool. So it's whichever one you think will support your team better. Spikes obviously having 3 layers and doing really good damage, whereas Toxic Spikes only having 2 layers but poisoning opponents, which could be very useful. But it's whichever one you want to choose there. And then for your next option, we are going to either go with Hydro Pump to be just a really strong water move, or possibly Scald if you want to change things up a bit, because this is a more support set in the sense that you are setting up hazards, so the chance to burn on Scald could be potentially useful on this set, as opposed to the other ones where you're just going to go offensively. So either Scald or Hydro Pump is a good option here, but Hydro Pump is more damage but less accurate. And then for your next move slot, you're either going to go with Dark Pulse or Ice Beam, depending on the coverage you think you are going to need with this Greninja. It again depends on your team and what you think you're going to be up against. And then lastly, we could either go with U-Turn again like we have done in previous sets, or the other spikes that we weren't using before. So if you put Spikes in the first move slot, you put Toxic Spikes in the second move slot, and vice versa. It's really whichever way you want to run this thing, but U-Turn is really great, and also being able to set up 2 different types of hazards is really great. So again, it's whichever one you want to choose. There are definitely a lot of options for this Pokemon to run, especially on this set. As for this last set, it's something that I really don't want you to all take very too seriously, but I list this in my database as the Let's Try and Be Creative with Protean set. So just bear with me as I explain this, because it actually makes a lot of sense. It's just maybe not the best thing for Greninja to do. But as far as the nature is going to be concerned on this set, we're going to start off with a Bold Nature to increase its physical defense but lower its physical attack, and for the ability, we're obviously going to be going with Protean. For the EVs, though, we're going to put 252 into our HP, 128 into our defense, and 128 special defense EVs into that stat to give Greninja a very nice mixed defensive EV spread. And for the item, we're going to be going with Leftovers on the set to recover a little bit of HP at the end of a return. Now, before I discuss the moves, basically the idea behind the set is to constantly be changing your type to resist things to allow you to then set up more entry hazards. So the first 2 moves on the set are going to be both Spikes and Toxic Spikes, which actually serve an excellent purpose on the set in terms of being defensive. Greninja normally starts out as a water dark type, right? So Spikes turn you into a ground type, which will then make you immune to electric type moves that potentially were going to be fired at you prior to you using Spikes. So that's really great. Then Toxic Spikes is also there to turn you into a poison type, which resists both the fairy, bug, and fighting type things that Greninja is also weak to because of its dark typing. So right off the bat, these 2 moves are working in combination with each other in terms of typing, because you are now resisting a bunch of different things. And once you are resisting one thing, that could give you another option or opportunity to set up spikes of the other kind because they're not going to go for the same attack if you're resisting it. Then we have Shadow Sneak, which has two purposes on the set. The first one, actually three. First one, obviously, is to turn you into a ghost type to make you immune to both normal and fighting moves, thus allowing you to not be hurt by them, possibly giving you yet again another opportunity to set up spikes. It also means that you can act as your own spin blocker because anything that wants to come in on Greninja and rapid spin cannot now do that because you are now a ghost type, which again will give you another opportunity to keep setting up spikes. Then it also has the option of being a potential last-ditch revenge kill thing, but don't worry, or don't think that it's going to be a very powerful move on this set because we are not EVing it in attack at all. But lastly, the move on this set to go within your fourth move slot is either going to be Scald or Hidden Power Steel. Scald obviously turning you into a water type. Water types have great resistances, but it also has a chance to burn, which is also fantastic. Obviously, not everything can be toxic by toxic spikes, such as steel types and poison types, and anything with levitate or flying typing. So Scald is definitely a good option to spread another status around. But Hidden Power Steel, which might sound absolutely ridiculous, works amazingly for this set because Steel is definitively the best defensive typing in the game. You resist almost like everything, basically. Obviously, they're not everything, but I'm exaggerating, but you get the point. And so this could obviously be an excellent move on the set to now resist more things, while also giving you another opportunity to set up spikes or toxic spikes. And another really great thing about this is because we are setting up status hazards and also having Scald, or actually no, because we're setting up status hazards, Hidden Power Steel is great because now we're resisting things. Your opponent is taking more toxic damage and they just can't hurt you that much. And also, you know, the coverage you get between Hidden Power Steel and Shadow Sneak is really funny because obviously you are weak to fighting with Hidden Power Steel, but with Shadow Sneak you are now immune to fighting, and that is priority, so that's really cool. So overall, the set is just meant to be silly with Greninja's Protean ability. It might not be the best thing for Greninja itself, but it's a really good, cool way to use the ability, which I think is very effective, and honestly, I think it's worth a shot trying out because it's really cool. But anyways, that is it for this video, everybody. Just to remind you all, subscribe if you liked the video. Feel free to follow my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Rykard3 or follow me on Twitter at Trainer Rykard. Also, my 6th Gen moveset database where I have all these movesets as well as all the previously done movesets and new ones that I'm going to be doing are going to be in the link below in the Google Docs, so click that. And then lastly, the Zat link actually changed. If you didn't know this, that it's no longer zat.com/Rykard3. It is now zat.com/Pokegrounds. We merged with another Zat to get some more people in, so hopefully it'll be a really fun and good time. But anyways, that's it for this video, everybody. So as always, thank you all for watching. Take care, goodbye, and I will see you next time.